So, Ari, we are back with part two of this Iran, Saudi, Turkey geopolitics that Indians do not understand. Now, as you explained to us about the mindset of the Iranian mindset, the American mindset, and the Saudi mindset, which I find perfectly plausible that the Iranians have been a great empire, and there's a continuity of structure and ruling and administration, which the Arabs do not have, the Saudis do not have. And that probably explains the mess that the Saudis have created in all over the world and everything,
all over the
exporting
world.
their
Yeah.
Wahhabism and everything. We are going to continue. So my next, what I want you to explain to us is the Iran-Iraq war. Did did that play in their favor, despite they were losing it, right? It still played in their favor. So just elaborate a little bit on that.
What actually happened is Saddam attacked Iran because there was this Western, and Saddam has been prompted. I don't know whether he was prompted directly by the US or not. Saddam ko baad mein bhi prompt kiya gaya when he was slandering into Kuwait and when there was a problem. April Glaspie, I think it's in Wikipedia also. Yeah. She said that your problems are your problem, doesn't concern us. So they sort of prompted him to attack Kuwait, and then they attacked Saddam. Yeah. तो सद्दाम तो ऐसे था, उसका काम ही था कैटपॉ बनना, with consequences of course. So I don't know whether he was prompted by USA or not. उसने Western media, when they started talking about the fact that Iran का army is very weak, it's a shadow of what it was, used to be, Khomeini ने सबको मार दिया, कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, then he probably took this as an opportunity and he attacked Iran कि वहां से अगर थोड़ा territory मिल जाए तो.
Just territory, or he wanted to convert the Shia population? Just the territory?
Saddam ka, whatever little we have understood as far as Saddam Hussein is concerned, he did not have that kind of a patience to convert people. He would either, you either fall in line or he shoots you or he gasses you.
Right.
Okay. So, and I don't think with a Shia population which is already, with Iraq having a formidable Shia population, Saddam Hussein अपना छोड़ के जाके ईरान में convert करने के लिए, no, it was territorial, it was probably oil also, which is why he walked it. So what happened is now, first May, Iran, what they did was, so Iranian army was a little weak. So what they did was Iran started recruiting from civilians.
Okay. Yeah.
They started recruiting kids.
Yes.
They recruited kids as young as 12-year-olds.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. They created that army. They took on the might of Iraq. And first round where they actually pushed back Iraq. And when they were pushing back, then that is the time when Saddam sued for a ceasefire. Khomeini ko अच्छा नहीं लगा, उसने बोला कि no ceasefire, we are going to march in and we are going to take Karbala. That is where the Arab world and the Western world lost their marbles and they supported Saddam कि तुमको जो करना है करो, पूरा पैसा है. That is when Saddam gassed these people. Okay. It was a tactical error on the part of Khomeini, and he realized that, and he stopped coming in public, and he died a couple of years after that. He was, he was badly hit actually by the result and whatever. But what happened is this revolution survived. The Islamic revolution survived. They couldn't bring down the Islamic revolution. Saddam ka dhanda kuch bhi tha, pata nahi, but the United States ka dhanda tha to bring down the revolution. Because two of the biggest, states where one was Saudi Arabia, one was Iran. Saudi to apna state hai, Iran chala gaya, haath se to kya hoga? And chala gaya actually, 79 mein wo chala gaya.
Right.
So they wanted to bring the revolution down. The revolution survived. The integrity survived. Okay, so their belief survived. And this sense of defeatism, historic sense of defeatism, which is there, which what did you say? Just about 15,
martyr mentality, the martyr mentality.
Martyr mentality of the Shia.
Siege.
This began changing.
This Karbala mentality, it's a siege that we are being, persecuted from all over.
And our story is tragedy. And our story is tragedy.
Our story is tragedy. It's always tragedy. All black and mourning. Marcia, basically. Marcia. Yeah.
That started changing. That started changing as a result of this. So tactically, it was a mistake. Iran lost very many people. बहुत कुछ खराब हुआ. But what happened from the point of view of Iran was, this was a massive boost as far as strategic boost as far as their mindset was concerned. And barely 3 years after that, when 1991 में this thing, United States तो इसको invade किया ना. Iraq ko. Desert Storm operation, Desert Storm and all. Tab se leke, these people, they were Shias, had the Shia clerics in hiding, Shia clergies were in hiding in Iran, who were groomed for the next 10 years, 15 years. And when they were ready, they were sent back to Iraq in 2003, 2004, when Iraq was lying in ruins, to build up the Shia, strength in Iraq. So yes, this was a tactical error. Possibly Iran, the ceasefire was drawn at Iran's disadvantage, but this was a strategic victory.
But isn't Karbala today with Iran?
No.
It's not with Iran. It's very important for Shias. It's a very important site for Shias. I think they have some kind of agreement with Iraq, right? Probably to visit, visas and all.
De facto, their government only.
Right. And now Iran has made some gains in Syria, right? It has shifted its focus to Syria.
Syria ka focus is like a kind of a hangover of Iraq ka second round. Iraq ka when this thing with Saddam Hussein was hanged and this Baath Party ka jo jitna bhi tha sabko nikal diya. Now for a Baath Party member, if you look at a Baath Party member, a normal guy, he's working somewhere, he's getting his salary, he's got his son in college, he's got his daughter in university. Suddenly there's no job. So you've got this underground, you've got this underground Sunni movement which is coming up, headed by Zarqawi. वो अपना अफगान का Afghan return jihadi. Okay, Al Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula. So Zarqawi ka movement resistance build up ho raha against the Shia, this thing, sudden Shia proliferation in the state of affairs of Iraq. वहाँ पे जाके Baath Party का सब join कर लिया. That was the start of ISIS.
True.
What happened is, but then again, because this was a reaction to a coordinated, very well coordinated, very well planned, movement on the part of the Iranian vis-a-vis a reactive kind of a thing which has happened, which is what led to the creation of ISIS and all. So this wasn't close to anything which the Iranians were presenting on the ground.
Right.
Naturally, these guys were chased out, and then they moved into a patch in Syria.
Okay.
For Syria, Iraq, or Iran ke beech mein jab.
Why Syria? Why particularly Syria? Geographically?
Because by that time, then they were orchestrating, the West was orchestrating a color revolution. Arab Spring aa raha tha na?
The color revolution, right.
Yeah. So you line up the NGOs to shout against your leader or ruler or king or dictator or whoever is there. And it gathers enough clout. There are mistakes that get made every time. And then you jump in for a regime change in the name of nation building process. And ISIS gets in. And ISIS was getting their money. ISIS people get their money from different sources, which we all know about. Kahan se uन log ka paisa aata hai. But then again, what has happened is, then when they got into they got into Syria, by that time then Syria was thoda getting kya bolte hai usko, destabilization of Syria was going on. So these proxies they pour in there, and their custodians, which is basically the Arabs and Turkey to a large extent, West also, they start sending their money. लेकिन आज के दिन में अगर देखो, then after that Russia walks in. It goes on for, I think it goes on for about 4 years, Syrian war. The first 4 years, and 15 September, I think 2015 September, Russia walks in. When about the time Syria is about to collapse, when Russia walks in. And then you have Russia ke saath saath Iran bhi, then, pehle jo tha probably underground support, how shall I, proxy ke through, indirect support and all, which was there probably. Now it takes on a full shape as far as the Quds force, as far as the Revolutionary Guard Corps is concerned. And then Assad, who was just about to this close to losing his seat, is suddenly back in power. Now there is a civil war going on in Syria. There are parts of Syria which has gone completely to the to the Sunni forces. Probably they're not going to come back, because now you've got Turkey which has come in. You've got the Kurdish militia that has taken forces. But what is happening is Assad is still there, and Iran has got a fair amount of control on that part of this, or that part of the landscape where Assad rules still.
Right.
And if you look at it, Assad is not even a Shia.
Okay.
Alawites are not Shia.
Yeah.
So you take how shall I put it? If you look at Syria, then you take advantage of a situation when the time is just about right. You get in and you create an atmosphere of so much of complete dependence on the power that you're supporting that you naturally gain power yourself. I don't know how you would want to put that. Now, this is something which probably the Arab world has been wanting to do for a really long time. They haven't managed to do because वो reactive बनने से नहीं होता है. So that's about Syria. So like, you know, now when you look, क्या बोलते हैं उसको? When you look from, let's say as an Indian, when you look at it, you have got Saudi Arabia surrounded. You have got Iraq, which draws its legitimacy from Iran. Right. You've got Syria. You've got Iran themselves there. पीछे के तरफ you've got Yemen.
We're coming to that. Yemen, yeah.
Bahrain का तो भी ऐसे, Bahrain का Shia population. Bahrain is run by a Sunni monarch, but it has got a Shia majority population. Right. So I don't know. If you know, day after tomorrow, if Iran decides to tap on Bahrain structure, the whole thing might come crumbling down. That's why United States is so, you know, this thing.
And yet, as you said, they don't openly show their hand. It's like in our minds, Indian perception, we still feel Saudis are the ones controlling the Middle East. Whereas it's completely different when you explain it this way. And yet the Iranians are not trumpeting their, you know, okay, we have this and we have this. They're not doing that. But as you explained it, they're actually controlling the Middle East, right?
They have come to. They were not. They have come to. Yeah.
So things are not going well for Saudi in Yemen either, right? In Yemen?
In Yemen, no. In Yemen reminds you of that Cannonballer movie. Cannonballer movie, dekho?
No. Tell me about it.
Cannonballer movie, not the entire movie. There's a part in this movie. There's this rich sheikh. Okay, he's got a son who's a amateur car racer.
Okay.
And he's kept a slave who's a failed Hollywood actor. This slave of this sheikh ka ladka, sheikh ka beta. And ये slave का काम है लोगों से थप्पड़ खाना.
Okay.
So whenever the sheikh is angry with his son, instead of slapping the son, he slaps the slave.
Okay.
So Yemen का case हो गया वैसा. Okay. After 20-30 years of civil war in Yemen, 40-50, I don't know how many years of civil war, the Houthis seized the power. तो अभी क्या करना है, ईरान के ऊपर बहुत इसका गुस्सा है, तो इसने प्लेन में ले जाके उड़ा के वहां पे जाके बॉम्बिंग शुरू कर दिया. Now if you look at this thing, Javed Zarif, I think he went on record and he said that, you know, we informed Saudi Arabia when Yemen was turning to be a problematic area. You know what Saudi Arabia told us is that the Arab world is Arab world, none of your business. He's gone on record.
Okay.
So it's not that you can't blame Iran here. At least during the initial time of Houthis seizing power, officially Iran scene mein nahi tha. In fact, they took that initiative to go on and to, you know, this thing, inform Saudi Arabia that, guys, you have problems down south.
And the Saudis didn't listen.
I said, Arab problem, you're not an Arab problem, you are a different problem, you go mind your business. And this is on record. Isme YouTube ka video bhi hai. Okay, you can get it on, you know, kya bolte, media mein bhi aapko mil jayega. So now, with this bombing and, you know, cluelessness about why you bomb people, to what extent, to what result, what you want to achieve after it, a section of the analysts of the Western world and analysts believe that because this is literally Saudi's backyard, they're trying to build their capacity to confront Iran. So ये उसका net practice का area है, वो slave वाला, चांटा वाला slave का area है. So they are bombing, they are slapping Yemen, so that, you know, they are kind of doing net practice to build against their capabilities against Iran, because they have probably come to realize the fact that there is soon going to be a time when we might have to face Iran in an open war.
Interesting. Net practice. It makes sense. Net practice, because it will happen. It will eventually. It's coming to that.
It's going very bad. The net practice is not going good at all for Saudi.
How does Turkey figure in this? All of this.
Turkey is a very sly guy. Okay, if you look at it's extremely sly.
I want to know, how did Ataturk's Turkey come to this? I want to know that.
Ataturk Turkey, देखो Ataturk ने क्या किया था? He had standing instructions to the military that you guys are responsible for preserving the secularity of Turkey. Now what happened is after his death for the next 40-50 years, every time there was a military coup, the military started looking like and behaving like Pakistan. So their idea was completely different. Usme there was this, forgot. There was a guy who came in. He was a very subtle sort of an Islamist.
Sisi?
Sorry?
Sisi?
No. एक minute.
Before Erdogan, who would have been there?
Ozul उसका क्या है? Ergot Ozul. एक minute देखते हैं.
Sure. No issues. Right. So how does Turkey figure in all of this?
Turkey is a sly guy, extremely cunning, extremely street smart, and that's how Turkey is. They're right now sitting by the sidelines, they're waiting and they're watching, and they've got quite a few aces up their sleeves, which we'll talk about.
How did Ataturk's Turkey come about this? I mean, how did that happen?
Ataturk के बाद जो 40-50 साल था, Ataturk died with the standing instruction to his army that you have to preserve the secular credential, secular identity of Turkey. The military started intervening whenever they thought it was necessary to prevent Turkey from becoming an Islamic country, which means there was always this, undercurrent which was there, this threat of Turkey turning into an Islamic nation, which is why the military had to intervene. They took a lot of flack for that. And then came in this gentleman by the name of Turgut Özal. Okay. Turgut Özal was he was a soft Islamist. On the look of it, he was a secular guy, but on the face of it, under mein, he was a soft Islamist. He laid down the first base, and then 40 years ke baad, Ataturk ke 40 saal ke baad ya 42 saal ke baad, when Erdogan comes in and he upturns the whole process. So what is happening now as far as Turkey is concerned, putting Turkey's domestic politics aside, Turkey kuch major game mein hai. Number one major game which Turkey is playing is all these immigrants from Syria. Turkey is pushing them into Europe.
Right.
उसके साथ साथ 2-4 लाख लिबियंस को भी जुटा लिए, उसके साथ साथ 2-4 लाख बांग्लादेशी को भी जुटा लिए, उसके साथ साथ अफगान को भी जुटा लिए, पाकिस्तान को भी जुटा लिए. All different breeds of Sunnis from different sections of the Middle Eastern world. ये क्या बोलते हैं इसको? Erdogan is pushing them very subtly in Europe. He holds Europe. Europe is his blackmailing machine. पैसा चाहिए होता है तो मर्केल उसको पैसा देता है, जब नहीं देता है तो 2-10 इमिग्रेंट को पुश कर देता है अंदर. Now he is doing that with an idea. Actually, he is doing now. These immigrants come, amount to what, 2%, 3%, hardly a number. Give another 20 years, their numbers would grow.
Yes.
So he's playing around with the demographics of EU. Right. And this is where I personally have a theory. When you listen to Ivan Frenholm, when you listen to Douglas Murray, when you listen to Mark Stein, they talk about Islamization of Europe. I say it is not going to be an Islamization of Europe. It is going to be a Turkification of Europe.
Turkification. Okay, right.
And you mark my words. Okay, so the first thing that Turkey is doing is it's pushing immigrants. This is because this mess in Middle East is like a massive advantage to Turkey now. Jahan se bhi aata hai, and these people have this tendency to move into first world countries, first world nations, for religious reasons, of course, which you would have other people to discuss about. So he keeps pushing them. Then there is one thing of Turkic identity. Iranians also share Turkic identity. Azeris also Turks, and then, but wo sab chhod do. Turkic identity is there in Bulgaria. Turkic identity is there in the Balkans also. Okay, so he is going to tap on that Turkic identity.
Okay,
he is actually tapping. The third thing that Turkey is doing is it's building mosques all over the Anatolia region.
Right.
ये referendum हुआ तो उसको अभी ये migrate करेगा presidential constitution में, Erdogan. तो the two, however, ये सब छोटा point था. Two most important point about Turkey. Turkey is pushing Islamist political parties in France, in Austria, in Bulgaria, in Holland. These parties are all Erdogan fan club parties. They are taking advantage of a multi-party democratic system. They gain some amount of clout, they would throw their whole weight behind to sort of abolish multi-party system and make it a one party. So that is how he is going to achieve a Turkification of EU, of Western Europe. So political parties, Islamic political parties, pushing of Islamic political parties in France and Austria. Here you talking about core Western society. Okay, so he's trying to influence that, and he is playing a extremely long game. He has taken one page out of the Iranian rule book. He has taken one page out of the Saudi rule book. Saudi rule book को खेल रहा है यहाँ पे इस side of the globe में, वो बाद में बता रहा है. I said two most important things. One was pushing up this thing, the Erdogan fan club political parties in Europe, which he's doing. The other thing which Turkey advantage. Now this is a core geopolitical advantage which Turkey has. Turkey has the Tigris and the Euphrates river basins. It has built some 600 dams, and the rivers flow from Turkey into Middle East, into the Persian Gulf. Okay, so Turkey controls the source of this water.
Right.
Or hydrocarbon bhul ja 50 years when water war is going to be a deadlier war, probably. Turkey has extensively, used these dams to their advantage. Anatolia में अभी बहुत जोर शोर से agriculture हो रहा है जो पहले नहीं हो रहा था. So the two biggest, so this Turkey's focus towards Middle East as of now would only be based out of water, और बाकी जो भी करेगा वो optics के लिए करेगा. क्या मीडिया में वो दो एर्तुगरुल का शो लगा दिया, people go gaga, people like Imran Khan and Pakistan suddenly start identifying themselves as Turkish. These are all optics. Right. Okay, what happens at the end of this optics nobody knows. Assumptive model, किसी को पता नहीं क्या होगा, अच्छा भी हो सकता है, कुछ नहीं भी हो सकता है. But promoting shows like this in Arab world, in Asian country, थोड़ा बहुत अपना soft पर appeal बना रहा है. कोई आके 2-4 पैसा मांग ले. These are all low cost initiative. कोई आके 2-4 पैसा मांग लिया कि सर पैसा दो, बम बनाना है, तो हम उसको 2 लाख रुपया दे दिया कि जा भाई तू बम बना ले, मार ले किसी के ऊपर. Now that Arab world is dwindling, the Sunni groups have to be taken up by someone. उसका guardianship किसी को लेना है. If tomorrow Turkey assumes the guardianship of the Sunni groups, of the Al-Qaedas and the ISIL of this world, don't be surprised. If Pakistan starts getting their Pakistani terrorist outfit starts getting their funding from Turkey, don't get alarmed. This is a part. So that question of Kashmir students wanting to go to study in Turkic university, Islamic, वो तो ये पता है तुमको क्या बोलते हैं इसको? Imam Hatib, जहाँ पे Erdogan का school, he went to Imam Hatib school. So he is now on a Imam Hatib school expansion spree. जहाँ पे देखो इमाम हातिब स्कूल खुल रहा है, and this is an Islamic school. This is a complete
something like the Deobandis and the Bareilwis here, right?
They have a they have a different sect actually. So this is what they're doing. What they're doing is they're trying to soft influence these guys in this part of the world with a lot of optics. So terrorist attack is a lot of optics. Web series is a lot of optics. It gives you result. It gives you result, maybe not a क्या बोलते हैं इसको, long drawn concerted result, but it gives you result. You can turn it into something if you want to, if you're good enough in future. So इसको, this part of the world, he is going to carry on doing whatever he is doing. Results किसी को मालूम नहीं, as I say. But his main focus would now be Europe, as far as Europe is concerned, because he started politicizing Europe. Islamic क्या बोलते हैं, political Islam को यूरोप में लाने का कोशिश कर रहा है, and he is doing a fairly good job there, and he's got a ground support. Another thing for Turkey is the West somehow is so madly in love with Turkey that you have places like FPRI and all. They say Turkey has got a very soothing effect on Middle East. When the Ottomans were in power, everything was good in Middle East. So we would support Turkey's taking over Middle East.
Totally forgetting the Armenians. Right.
Totally forgetting what Iran has to say. Now, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that Turkey is going to take over Middle East. Turkey is going to right now get into a direct clash with Iranians, because Turkey and Iran has got certain area of interest when it concerns land because of the Kurdish issue.
That's what I wanted to ask. If Iran is focusing on Saudi and the Turks are focusing on Europe, do they have a clash between themselves?
Abhi tak they are very carefully avoiding.
Anna? Circling each other, more like circling each other, but eyeing each other actually.
Abhi they're carefully avoiding for a couple of reasons. It's a very interconnected world. It's like a, it's like a mesh of thread. You tap one side, the other side starts vibrating. They're avoiding each other because of the involvement of Russia and China also. They would definitely want to prevent a flare-up. As far as Turkey and Iran are concerned, there is one area which is lying in between them, which is the Kurdish area. Okay, so the bigger focus for Turkey is on Kurds, because the Kurds can act as a disruptive, what shall I say, force as far as Turkey's bigger plans are concerned. Jo ye dam mein bana raha hai, all it takes is a bomb. So Turkey knows that. Turkey is extremely aware of that. It wants to take care of the Kurdish issue once and for all. United States and the Western power, while they are supporting Turkey has been dilly-dallying on the issue of Kurd, which is to the dislike of the Turkish people, the Turkish government. Let's not talk about the people. Let's talk only about the government. So Turkey has, what I'm trying to say is, as far as Middle East is concerned, Turkey has got a lot of issues there which they are yet to iron out. I don't know if they have a policy, if they have a plan, if they have a vision for that.
Okay.
Europe is a no man's land. It is an uncontested area. Europe is a de-Christianized region where people have not gone into any religion this past, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years. Most people, there's a lot of atheists there. Okay, so the importance of religion, the way we consider probably a Indian or a Pakistani or a Saudi considers religion is not something the Europeans is used to. So getting these people, if I want to beat them into submission by this way or that way, is easy.
Right.
When this atheist revolution happened in Europe, which we were planning to discuss one day, but we couldn't end up discussing. Even this atheist revolution happened. It was a damn good thing to happen. Why it was not good for Europe is because the rest of the world wasn't ready for it. Pura dunya mein agar ho jata, then there would have been parity.
Right.
But here you have a Western world which is based on Roman Christianity and Enlightenment and everything, and they are like doing away with one pillar of their life, and they exist beside a region which is Middle East, which is so steeped in religion. The religion ke siva aur kuch nahi hai, and then you get these two to collide. Then you get these two to clash. What is going to happen? And that is what is going to happen probably in Europe. And mere khayal se my whatever little I know, my thing is Erdogan is playing that game where he's going to very subtly go for a European takeover. This would be his legacy. वो 15 साल के बाद वो जिएगा, पता नहीं कितना दिन जिएगा. But whoever comes in, if the Islamization of Turkey happens during his time, this legacy of Erdogan would be carried on by someone. The Turkification of Europe. It's going to happen. So that is the game, sort of, Turkey is saying.
Great game in the Middle East, right, and Europe. All right, taking Iran as a reference point overall, how do you see these three regional powers in terms of their effect and influence in the whole of the Islamic world, which covers India as well? How do you see their effect, all the three regions?
That's where I said that now, if Saudis, see, let's look at it this way. When you are selling $100 a barrel, you don't have to do shit. When you cannot sell $100 a barrel, then you cannot do shit, even if you want to. So that's what Saudi Arabia is facing. My belief is that their power is they are weakening, actually. Whether they hold on, how long they manage to hold on, that's something which I would not get into, because that's completely assumptive discussion once again. Whether Bahrain stays, whether Bahrain goes, Saudi stays, Saudi goes, I don't know. But right now, Saudi's influence is thoda karke ebbing out. If Turkey takes over that mantle, as I was saying, कि भाई terrorist लोग का अभी guardian चला गया, तो अभी तुम लोग मेरे पास आ जाओ, I'll sponsor some money, go and blow some bombs. So if Turkey does that, then it is going to be from now on, in the next 5 years time now, जैसे भी होता है, it is going to be now Turkic Sunni का influence on the rest of the world, the radical influence. Now, whether they have a plan or whether they build, whether they continue moving the same way that Saudi Arabia moved, कि किसी मदरसा को पैसा दे दिया, कुछ दो चार outfit को पैसा दे दिया, that's something which I again don't know. Because then there is one thing which you need to also consider. Saudi Arabia had a lot of money. 79 was the third. 1979 was another important year. That was the third time when the oil price is quadrupled.
Right.
Within a very short. So they were sitting on money. They still have a lot of sovereign wealth fund, but not enough to rebuild their nation, Saudi Arabia. So that kind of money, I don't know if Turkey has. What Turkey can do is chota mota optics. वही बोला जैसे कि maintaining a couple of terrorist groups. They would try to disrupt running of the activities and the running of the states of Central Asia. The first chat that we had, there was this hawa of Turkic presence being could be a potential factor in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they come in, they would come in as a disruptive force. So that is the influence that Turkey would probably have in this part and the rest of the world, as far as the Arab identity is now going to shift to Turkish identity. The Arabs actually decline, as far as Sunni militancy and terrorism is concerned.
Okay.
As far as Europe is concerned, they have a much more well-coordinated plan, which they are going to work on. At which we are probably going to listen very less of. As far as Iran is concerned, Iran's core focus, as far as my understanding was and remains Middle East. They're not trying to project in India. They're not trying to project in Indonesia. They're not trying to project in Europe. They're not trying to project in South America. Nowhere. Their core focus is Middle East. And I don't know if they are after Mecca and Medina, or I don't know if they are actually after upliftment of the Shia population and doing something good for them. So that's the overall impact as far as this region is concerned.
What does all this mean for India? Like we started it, that Indians don't understand this mindset. Now that you've explained everything, what does all this mean for India? If we do start understanding this mindset, what does it mean for us?
India needs to build a lot of awareness. Both in terms of Indian media, in terms of the guys that are running think tanks and things like that, the general armed public, Aam Janta in general, they need to build a lot of awareness as far as Middle East is concerned. If I am to talk about India's understanding of Middle East, as far as these nations are concerned, these people are in a no-nonsense game. Okay, they are playing to win. India plays to sort of float around in the international arena like a beauty queen trying to be Miss Popular and trying to win favors. I don't know why. Okay.
Interesting metaphor. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've always maintained that. And in fact, we have a laugh at times that, you're looking at international diplomacy, you're looking at international relationship as a popularity contest. You can't win that way. Okay, I don't want to get into it, but have you seen our leader going and hugging people?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, this is
last time I saw a leader hugging and kissing was Yasser Arafat, and I still cringe at that. So I'm not going to get into that. That's true.
अच्छा ठीक है, वो तो hugging छोड़ दो, hugging उसका Arab का है. Arabs do hug and kiss each other. Okay, but here in an international arena, you are. Facebook में भी friends नहीं होते, stalk करते रहते हैं. In an international arena, you are going and hugging people who don't have the first clue about what you're about to do and how you're about to behave with them. So you don't move around trying to be Miss Popular. You try to produce some results. And if I look at Iran, that is the first thing that we probably should try and learn from Iran.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being at such a huge disadvantage, being surrounded by people, I mean, there are a lot of lessons that one can learn from Israel as well. And both these guys are at each other's throat, Iran and Israel, we know that. But there are a lot of lessons that you can learn from Iran as well. Okay.
I wish they don't focus so much on Pakistan. I know I, as a Kashmiri, should, but then, it's like their whole thing is about Pakistan, in which they're trying to cover up their deficiencies. For them, Turkey doesn't matter. Anytime you talk to a geo expert or geopolitical expert or somebody, Turkey doesn't matter to them. The Saudis are like, okay, America is taking care of it. But you're right, we should be focusing on them and learning from them, and basically, because again, like Israel is fighting to survive, and I think soon India will have that battle as well. It Borders might remain the same, but it's always what is inside. Like you talked about Iraq, Iran's strategy there, brilliant strategy,
Yeah.
I must say. And India has something like that as well. I mean, we have mini Pakistans here already. It doesn't matter that the border has not changed, but in next 50 years, you could have something like that. You could
Yeah,
actually
there are
have
a
a
lot of
government controlled by the Pakistanis. So definitely,
there are a lot of disruptive forces at play
Indians need to.
at present in India. Yes.
Well, thank you, Hari. It's been great. And next, we are covering Great Britain. Are we going to cover Great Britain in the Great Game?
Great game. The British players of the great game.
Yeah, I would want
Okay.
out on that. We've done Russia. We need to do Great Britain, and I'm really
Yeah. Sure.
pissed off at Great Britain right now because the MPs are interfering again in Kashmir. So yeah, great game. British
Now
action.
we'll catch up.
Right?
We'll catch up. Great game, and then we'll probably do Afghanistan at a later date.
Oh yes, because that needs a lot of. I need you to be free, totally free. Thank you so much coming here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Looking
Thanks for
forward to the
inviting.
next one. Thank you.